What stranger will you never forget? When I was in elementary school, I fell through ice. A man who was walking his dog saw me fall and rushed to the shore. I frantically swam back to the shore. I was only about 5 meters into the pond, so it wasn't a long way, but it took some with soaked winter clothes. When I reached the shore, the man pulled me up by my jacket. It would have been difficult to get up, as there was a steep incline. I didn't thank him because I was in shock, but I bet he knows I was grateful, and 20 years later, I still hope I would have thanked him. I was waiting for my appointment with an optometrist when an old Haitian man walked in with a grocery. Bags.tye receptionist knew him, so he walked up to me and proceeded to ask me riddles. When I finally got the answer to one, he reached into his bag and gave me a Snickers and left. To this day, I'm really curious as to what would motivate a man to become a wholesome riddler. I was doing tech support and my customer was so happy with my service, she offered to marry me to her daughter. I politely declined. An Irish guy, not in Ireland, who spoke with such a strong accent that I couldn't make out a single word. To this day, I question whether it was just a prank. The foreign exchange student and his parents who walked past my park bench on campus and dropped his passport. I chased after them to return it, and his mum started screaming at me in broken English, like, "Why you have his papers? Why you steal his papers?" While the kid and his father looked like they were going to die from embarrassment. I used to walk to school at around 7:30 am every morning during high school. Each morning through 9th and 10th grade, I used to pass an old Asian man in a sweater and sweatpants. He used to jog every morning, and we would always briefly see each other at the exact same time. Eventually, we were familiar with each other, and we would exchange good mornings and a smile, and carry on. The last time I saw him was at a supermarket, and it had been quite a while since I'd seen him during my walks to school. When we made eye contact, he got so happy and smiled and waved and introduced me to his wife. She was just as kind as he was, as I continued my walks in the morning until graduation. I always hoped to run into him again and see how he had been. I guess I grew attached to him or something. Unfortunately, I never saw him again after that, and from time to time he still crosses my mind. I hope he's okay. He used to be the highlight of my days when no one else could smile at me. I was driving down south with my girlfriend. We have a blowout, so I put on the donut. The donut blows out while we are exiting the very next exit. So there we are, maybe 19 and at least 100 miles from anyone we know, at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking on what to do next, and probably looked like there was something wrong. So this older man offered to help. He drives me 20 or so minutes to a junkyard to get a cheap tyre. Then he puts the tyres on the rim with no more than a pry bar and some soapy water. Had a compressor on his truck, so he aired it up and I put it on, and we went on our way. There are a few. The biggest one was when I was homeless and asked a lady for the time. She told me and asked if I wanted to share her sandwich and the paper. She was the first person to treat me like a person, like I was worth something in year. I never got her name, but I will remember her fondly for the rest of my life. I know that she'll never, ever know what difference she made in my life. Just that one simple thing she did, and the humanity she showed me changed my life. I got sober just a few days later and completely turned my life around. One person, one smile, one kindness that you may never think of again in your life can change someone else's life beyond measure. I was at a pool bar at a resort in Jamaica. A British lady next to me asked me the most random question, which turned into a nearly 3-hour conversation. The question, what is a redneck? It was a lot more difficult to explain than I thought it would be. I didn't realize that was an unknown concept to a lot of Brits. I volunteer at a seaside hotline. Some guy, Bob, called in and we started talking about his home situation. Nothing absolutely horrendous, but he felt trapped and stressed and felt like he didn't have options. When people use language like that, our training says we should ask if they're thinking of suicide. Many volunteers have trouble with this, but if you mention suicide to someone who is not suicidal, it doesn't make them more suicidal. They just correct you and say no. I feel more like Sis. So I asked Bob, you're using a lot of language that people use when they're thinking of suicide. Are you thinking of suicide? There was a pause, and then a huge wail. I could hear so much pain in his voice. I listened to him cry for at least 5 minutes. I've talked to people who would be better if I were dead kind of thinking, but with no plan. Bob said years he was considering suicide, and we talked it out a bit more. After the pause and wail, that was the most concerned I've ever been for a human being outside my family. This wasn't just talking. I felt like he had already made up his mind about it, which was so scary. I only know what he told me. I know he was in his car park somewhere. I know we got a few short laughs out of each other. And we made some plans for him. Plans are important because it gives you a sense that if he's something to do, to plan for, he can't commit suicide. Anyway, he truly is a stranger. I don't know his real name or what he looks like. I just know his story, and I know that he was in immense pain that day. He had a particular kind of accent, and when I meet someone with that same accent, I think of him and hope he's off.